I'm glad that Brother Richard, in his prayer, included Michelle and Daniel and the ministry they're involved in, Children of the Sun. We had them here time too in the past, and we pray that the technology goes with today, where they're able to show you what they're doing. You know what? I've never been to Romania, but when they come and they share what they're doing, in a way, we get to go there as they tell the story. This is a really significant call that they have on their heart, and I like their enthusiasm. And you know what? God may be calling some of us to something in our life that we haven't surrendered to, but I pray that perhaps as they share their missionary moments with us today, that maybe you'll hear clearly what God has in store for you, Michelle.
Okay. You know, this is such a special church to me because I grew up here, but I realized that while I feel like I know everybody here, that's not true because this church has grown a lot through the years. My name is Michelle Sims, and my mom is Sandra Giles, and my stepfather is Richard Giles, and this is my daughter, Carissa. When I was a little girl, about this age, I very clearly remember my mom saying to me, "I hope you have a child just like you." Now, I did not understand as a child what implications that would have on me as a parent, but I get it now. And thank you, Mom, for that, because I have one just like me. Carissa and Elisha went with us to Romania last year. In the first slide up here, you'll see Carissa and Elisha just hanging out and having fun with some children that are a part of our ministry. They are Roma, which is also known as Gypsy. And they just had a great afternoon playing in the dirt and playing with sticks and rocks and just having a great time in the flowers.
And they're poor.
And they're very poor. Tell them why you had to play with those things. Did they have any toys?
No.
No, they didn't have toys. What did they have?
Sticks and flowers to put to make something.
Yeah. And what kind of houses did they live in? Do you remember what the houses were made out of?
Bricks.
Mud bricks. Can you say mud brick?
Mud bricks.
So when we got back home to the United States, Carissa had thought about it through a little book that she reads, had an idea that she was going to have a what?
I sent them coats and boots.
No, I know that. How did you do it? What did we have?
Money.
How did you get the money?
People gave it to me.
When did they give it to you? What kind of party did you have?
A princess party.
She had a birthday princess party, and she asked instead of presents for the people to give money. How many children did you buy coats and boots for?
3.
3 little girls, right? The 2 in this picture and then another little one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and they said, unfortunately, I don't have that picture. I couldn't find it. How did that make your heart feel when you saw that you had given children something to stay warm?
Happy.
Good. Thank you for coming up here and helping Mom. Elisha, did you want to say something too?
Yeah. Howdy, everyone.
One of the things that I knew to be true, but was driven home when I became a mom, is that my legacy here on earth is not in my ministry in Romania. It's not in anything I do. My ministry is in everything I pour into my children, because that's what I get to leave here. And what they continue to do after I leave will set the stage for the next generation of people being evangelized. And so every day my prayer is, not that I'm a influential person in any area other love for Jesus that I lead my children. And that really is it. That's all I desire to be. But God has given us a ministry in Romania with a wonderful staff there. And I want to share with you today. It's been a long time since I've updated here. I couldn't remember the last time I've been here, but I wanted to explain to you a few things for those of you who had heard before and for those of you who don't know. At one point we had an orphanage, and that had to change because the laws in Romania changed, stating that infants could no longer go to an orphanage, even if it was a nice private one. They had to go into foster care. So then we started a foster care ministry, and then they started requiring parents to take multiple children, mostly with disabilities. And many parents wanted to foster to adopt, but they didn't necessarily have the means to take care of the disabled children. So we stopped doing foster care, and then we moved into caring for abandoned children in the hospital, and we did that for years and years for the majority of our ministry. And we also cared for pregnant women at one time. But we realized something in caring for abandoned babies and caring for pregnant women, and that is, at that point, it's too late. It's too late. The women were continuing to abandon their children, and after a child has been abandoned, trying to find a place for that child so they could be loved and nurtured was very hard in that country. So God led us very clearly to change our focus from being reactive to being preventative. And the way we did this was to look hard at where the children were being abandoned, where and who was abandoning the children. So once we really, as a social worker, you're trained to go and look and see what is the social problem and what's causing it. Well, as a Christian social worker, I know there's one thing that's the heart of every social problem, and that's a spiritual root. And that's true of whether or not you're in the United States, Romania, Russia, Israel, wherever you go, there's a spiritual root behind that problem, because Satan is not original. So alcoholism looks the same here as it does in Romania, as it does in Russia, as it does in all of those other countries. And that was very clear to me. When we don't value life, we don't value life. That's a spiritual issue. But it's more than just about the sanctity of life. It's also about ensuring that there's a quality of life given. Because we do children an injustice if we just preach sanctity of life without finding the means as a Christian body to give them a quality of life to grow to know Jesus. And that was our hearts. This is what Daniel and I together said, we must do this. So, we developed a Christian preschool. We saw the children that are being abandoned are mostly Roma, Gypsy. And we had to look at that and say, how do we stop it? Well, there's a cultural issue. They arranged the marriages of their girls at 12 years old. So if any of you can think about that, arranging the marriage of your daughter at 12 years old, knowing that she doesn't even keep her room clean, you understand that there is already an emotional issue going into that. So we had 18-year-olds, we saw it all the time, 18-year-old Gypsy girls who had already given birth to and abandoned 3 children. That is why Romania has the most abandoned children per capita in Europe of any other country. It was just becoming, it was an epidemic problem. So we pushed back and said, we've got to start early. We've got to start giving them Jesus early. The other problem was they were all uneducated. All of them. There was, in the village of Sant'Andrea where we were, there is a 100% illiteracy rate among the Roma when we started there. 100%. Not one child or adult was able to read and write. This is only 4 kilometers from the city, just more than a couple of miles. So we looked at that and said, what is the problem? So we went into the school systems and we talked to them and said, why is it that the Gypsies don't come to your school? And then we learned why. It was just in a few sentences. The radical, extreme discrimination that was held against this people group was like something we've never heard of for discrimination. They had practiced eugenics during World War II, and so they were taught to believe that the Roma were genetic junk, that they deserved to be massacred. Most people know that 6 million Jews were massacred during the Holocaust. They don't know usually that 1.5 million Gypsies were also massacred. So this mentality was passed down, and it's even taught by the medical profession there that Gypsies are genetically inferior. So if you're taught to believe you're genetically inferior, you believe it. You start buying into it. So Why should they go to school? They're only ever going to be poor. And one of them told me, my only joy in life, the only thing I could ever do was bring life into this world. So I did it 13 times. 13 times living in a 10 by 10 mud hut. 13 times. But it was her joy. And I said, but what about before you abandoned? Well, I couldn't afford to take care of them. I couldn't keep them, and the government can do that. This is what they were taught to believe, not realizing by the time that child is 2, they are so mentally impaired from being abused, or not even abused, abandoned and neglected, that they were not ever going to have a normal life. So that's when our ministry said, let's look at the Roma population and see what we can do. We started a Christian preschool, we started a Christian after school, because even if you're going to school, if your parents are illiterate, they can't afford to teach you how to read and write because they can't do it. So they can't afford the tutors and they can't teach you themselves. So we had to start a Christian after school. Then we started a program where, and how the Lord did this was just amazing. He did it one afternoon through a prayer that we had prayed together as a ministry. The Lord, bring us one family that has one gypsy teenager that they want to send to school. Just give us one family. And he did that one afternoon with one of my social workers when we were out in a really remote village. We found out about this young woman who wanted to go on to go to high school, which was unheard of, absolutely unheard of among the Roma. So that program spun off into something called Education Inspiration. Her name is Karina. You're going to see her story on the PowerPoint presentation. And then we started Agape Home. So the home we had for pregnant women, we turned into Agape Home, a boarding school for Roma boys. This is interesting because this was Daniel's idea. Most of you know that Daniel is a school teacher. And he said to me, I don't know why you're always focusing on the boys. The girls, it's the boys that are getting pregnant. So why are we just exclusively focusing on the girls? And I thought, good point. What do you think we should do? And Daniel thought we should take the boys out of their village, so it gives them away from where the girls were, and board them at our facility in Sant André, because where they live is about 40 kilometers, roughly 25 miles from the city of Orania, and get them away and have them go to high school there and have a Christian family pour into them. So we did that. Those programs have been incredibly successful. Now, as a result of spending 10 years in Romania, I do counseling. I do pre-adoption education for families that want to adopt internationally. And I do post-adoption crisis intervention for families that have adopted institutionalized children and don't understand attachment issues, sensory issues, and all of those other things. So, if you know people that are struggling or know people that think they might want to adopt, this is part of Children in the Sun now. It's called In the Sun Counseling that I am doing. So I do that, as often as I can while still running the administrative part of what we do in Romania. Right in the first part of our ministry, and the unfortunate thing about it, I can say this, and most people will understand that my Bible died this morning. I forgot to bring my charger to my mom's house. So I use my iPad as my Bible now because I'm entirely too vain to admit that I need reading glasses. But I do. And I snagged a Bible from Mama and Richard's house that I can't read because the print is too small. So if I get it wrong, forgive me. But this was a verse the Lord spoke to my heart the very first year in Romania. And he seared it in my heart. I remember weeping uncontrollably because this was his promise to me. It's in 1 Kings 17, verse 16. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord gives rain on the land. His promise to me was, as long as he wanted this ministry to continue, the oil would not dry up. And I want to tell you, it's not dried up. We are a daily bread ministry. We live on our daily bread, and I've learned to stop having a panic attack when there's no bread, because he's going to bring it. He's just going to use different people and different methods to do it. I want to show you now the PowerPoint and the amazing Romanians that are there running things. So these are our Romanian staff. The one to the left is our administrator. Her name is Georgie. The one beside her is Evie. She is one of our after-school workers. The one in the middle is our first preschool teacher. And then the one to the right is a social worker. And the one to the far right is our social worker. These women make it happen. These are our domestic missionaries there. And your church support, being part of our team, enables us to make this happen. The next slide you'll see is, her name is Rhodey in action at our after-school program. Without her, these kids could not go on. The most educated Roma child is going to school right now. She is in 6th grade and is able to read and write. They've never had anybody achieve that before, definitely not as a girl, but she is very, very literate. The next slide happened at Christmas. Every Christmas we get shoebox Christmas gifts from Samaritan's Purse United Kingdom, and then we supply Christmas gifts as well, because as you know about shoebox Christmas gifts, if it's not all the same, if everything in the box is not the same and the kids don't get everything the same, they feel like somebody's getting left out. So we do our own Christmas boxes every year where we have people support us. They send the money over, then we buy the gifts. The next picture is some of our preschool students. This photo was taken when I was there 2 years ago, visiting some of our kids there during the summer. Okay, let me explain why this is important. The field trip to the thermal baths. You'll be able to get this as soon as I explain the situation to you. All of the Roma residents of the colony where they live, all of them are without indoor plumbing. If you're without indoor plumbing, you can't take a bath. If you can't take a bath and you're a child and you go to school, you're pretty quickly ostracized. And that was an issue. They were being told that they smelled all the time. So this trip happens every year the day before school starts. And then now we have the teachers instructing us when we need to take another field trip to the thermal baths. So this usually happens a few times a year when you've got, a mom that has no indoor plumbing and she has to carry water a good distance to bring it home to heat it up. There's just not going to be a lot of effort made to do this. So we try to help out by doing this every couple of months. The next, these are children that need sponsors, and this is something I'm going to talk about. Sponsorship. This is something we're pushing. Without sponsors, we can't do what we do. And it's just part of what we do. It costs us roughly $75 to $100 a month per child. It depends on what program they're in. The little one's about $75 a month. So we ask people either one family to support the whole 75 or two families to support at $35 a month. So this is how we're running our ministry now. And it has been very effective. The next slide, this is the young woman I told you about, Krina. This is in March of 2007, when we were still there. We started working with her. The next slide is a beautiful slide, May of 2011. Actually, did it jump that far ahead? There wasn't, okay, there wasn't one in between. Okay, that's not what I thought there was. When we started working with Krina, nobody in her area had ever gone to school before, ever gone off to high school, that had been raised in a Roma family. So we had our boys going to Agape home, and we started seeing, as we did things together with the girls and the boys, that something was happening between Krina and Florine. But Krina's marriage was already, the father had already been offered a dowry for her, and he hadn't accepted it, which was unusual. He said, we promised this ministry we were going to let her get her high school degree first. So we promised, they call me Wanda Michelle, we promised Wanda Michelle that we're going to get her education first, so you'll have to wait. Well, the boy he didn't want to wait, because they considered 17 an old maid. I'm not kidding. So we said, we said to her mom and father, we'll consider letting her get married at the end of her high school year, but not before the last year of her high school year. So the boyfriend got mad, and she said, well, if you're going to get mad and not want me to get my education, I don't want you as a husband. So she broke up with him. Well, in the next photo, you'll see that Florine moved in pretty quickly. And they got married in May of 2011, and they had the first Christian wedding ever in the history of their people group in the area where they live. There had never been people that had waited until they could legally get married and got married before a pastor, and that is what they did. So that set the bar really, really high for everybody else there. This is their culture to do the horse and cart processional. You see the big bride dress flowing over. Our ministry paid for all that for her as a reward for all of her hard work. Now, at this point, she's not in high school. She's in college. Her husband allowed her to go on to college. Incredibly unusual, but that is because of what my husband poured into him. And Daniel's influence on those first 4 boys, honestly and truly, have changed the face of what Christian mentality among young men is in that village. That is why relationship is what Jesus is about. It's everything that he's about. The next slide is Karina at the end of 2012. She was married in May of 2011, had her baby in 2012. Couldn't understand why it was taking her that long. I'm like, really? The next photo you'll see is her little baby. That photo I took myself of her pregnant the year before last, and then this photo was taken the following month, Maria Tavita, and then the following photo was just taken this May. She had her second baby girl, Sophia Miriam. They've given both of their children Christian names, and both of them were baptized the year that they got married. So just amazing to see the Lord. The next photo you'll see. So she finished her college degree and got her degree in early childhood education. Well, that's going to come into play in a few more slides. So these are some of our other girls in education inspiration. Not all of them were Roma. Some of them were 4 Romanian girls. The next slide. This is our Agape Home boys. The family to the right, the couple to the right, they are Slovakian Romanians. As you know, the territories, the borders in Romania have changed for years as the wars have happened. So they're Slovakian Romanians, incredibly godly couple, really pouring into the lives of these boys. They have been such a godsend for our ministry. And these were our Kraka boys last year. 3 of them finished, and then 1 of them will be coming back this year. So they're getting their degrees, and their vocational degrees to be auto mechanics, electricians, things like that. They're able to earn money to keep their children. The next slide is a slide of 4, these are 4 new boys that will need to be sponsored this year. And this is what I learned about boys. I should have remembered this from growing up with a younger brother. I thought pregnant women ate until I started having to do the fundraising for teenage boys. Oh my goodness. That is a whole different world of eating that I never imagined. What they eat every day, Romania makes bread, the Romanians make bread in large oval loaves, and they're about this big. They each eat a whole loaf every day. It's a good thing that we have a baker that lives next door in the village, or I don't know what we would do. The next slide, these are some girls that need sponsoring. These are 2 new girls this year. Also in their mid-teens, they want to go to high school. And the next slide is the progression. You'll see in all these photos, and we'll go through them kind of quickly. This is the building site that we were given in 2010. Now, when we started building here, this is the area where we're working with the girls and the boys. This village is called Jemish, very remote, no source of income whatsoever. These people live daily on what, and they don't eat daily, all of them. These photos are taken. New Covenant Fellowship down the road here has been out 3 times, I think, with various teams, done amazing work there. And we have other American teams that have gone over it as well. And as I look at these photos, as I was writing an update several months ago, I thought, Lord, why has this taken so long? It has been 3 years of construction. And the Lord just gently reminded me a mortgage is 30 years. Our ministry has always had a no-debt policy. So if we can't pay for it, we don't build it. And this building, when it's finished, and it's almost finished, is going to be paid. Debt-free. And that is just, when I think about that, 3 years of struggling to raise money for it, and then I don't have to worry about it. I mean, in 30 years, I hope I'm with the Lord. I don't have to worry about Romania anymore. They've given us the land for 50 years, and I definitely hope I'm with the Lord by then. this church in Romania, amazing. We've never had a Romanian church step up to the plate and do their own missions trip. They did right there. Our friend pastors this church. They did a phenomenal job of laying the bricks. And then you can just keep flipping through them, and you'll see the dates on, just the progression of it all. It's been slow for me, but it's happened. This is New Covenant Fellowship. That's them and sitting in the windows there in the fall of 2012. And then you'll see where it is now. It's just amazing. This is fall of 2013. And this is the next photo. It doesn't have a date on it. Oh, no, I'm wrong. It's not the next photo. This is the New Covenant Fellowship went over this spring, and they put in the floor, and they put up the fence, and they put the tiles in the bathroom. The bottom floor is finished and ready to be used to start our preschool this fall. And here are the Crazy Americans, that's what they call them, and the Romanians together. These are some of our children that will be going to the preschool there at the after school. And then the next slide was May. This is how it looked like when the team left in May. And then the next slide is how it looked last week. We have the exterior on it now. And I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed at how God has provided for this building to be built. The final slides are these pictures are the 120 school-age children. They're obviously not all in that room, but we were doing a vacation Bible school for them. There's 120 school-age children in this village that just live in, you'll see the house. The next house is, the next picture is a house. This is what they live in. And this is considered a large house because it has 2 rooms to it. No running water, no indoor plumbing. It's just a hard way of life, a really hard way of life. Romania doesn't like to call themselves third world, but those conditions definitely are third world. And then these are ways to donate, and I want to show you these last 3 pictures. I just got these on Friday. This little girl, Andrea, is a child that will need to be sponsored. She is coming into our program, has absolutely no sponsorship. And as somebody in ministry, I'm not going to let that opportunity pass me by. So if anybody is interested, I have forms for sponsorship for Andrea. The next one, the next photo is also an Andrea. I have forms for her. And then the last one, his name is Amida. I have no idea where that name came from. That is not a typical Romanian name, but his name is Amida. And then we're back to the beginning. So I brought my phone up here to make sure that I didn't run over time because I know I can talk. And I just wanted to get everything in today so you could see that we were doing. I want to tell you that the infant abandonment problem that we initially started working with, and I started working with in 98, within the families that we work with, there is no more infant abandonment. It has ceased to exist because the babies aren't being born until the people are married and can afford them. And that is to the glory of God Almighty. Only He can use His love and His power and His word to change the lives of people. I can tell you as a social worker, I can do the best counseling in the world, but I cannot change anybody. It is only the power of God Almighty and the Holy Spirit that can do the work that it needs to do in somebody's life. And that is what has happened here. So please understand that we believe that teaching children that they are valued because Jesus died for every one of us equally is key to what we do. It's what everybody does there. It's what we all believe. And I am so amazed and blessed to be a part of this ministry and to work with this godly group of men and women in Romania to take the gospel message. And to think about this, like to think back to my time as a little girl here, being a girl in action and missions in action, that mattered. That mattered. That played a role because I saw that people went and did. And that mattered in a time where it needed to matter. So I thank you, this church, for your support, for what you've meant to our ministry, for being faithful to support through the years. And I thank my family that has been supportive that go to this church. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Sponsorship forms are over here, and then I'm going to leave the church a few brochures to put up that are the current work that we're doing. And my email address and phone number are on there. I'm always happy to answer questions. But I just want you to know how much we appreciate what your church has done in partnering with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay,